My name is Serena. Okay, I'm from Study Hub Student Advisory. I'm one of the student advisor, and today we have Jeannie also with us from JS Study Solutions. She's a student advisor. So today we are honored to have Harriet University Malaysia with us to talk about actuarial science and its pathway. So we have Dr. Alistair Rallis. Okay. He's the associate head from School of Mathematical and Computer Science. And also we have one of the alumni, Kok Wai Ming. He's an actuarial science graduate, 2019. So before I pass the floor to Dr. Alistair, let me do some short introduction on who are we. So we are actually a student consultant, and also we help students in institutions applications. Besides that, we offer accommodation, visa, and travel arrangement, institution scholarship application assistance. We give free career consultation, course counseling and such, school activities, talks, and events. And these are our offices across Malaysia. We have seven offices, Klang, Jejarum, Mentaka. In Sabah, we have Sandakan and KK, and we have Seremban and Seremban too as well. Yeah. So a reminder to students, if let's say along the presentation by Dr. Alistair, if you have any questions, you can always type in your question in the chat box. We will try our best to attend to your questions. But after the presentation, we also have we also will open up the floor for Q&A session. So without further ado, I will pass the floor to Dr. Alistair.
Okay, hello everyone. So let me begin by making my screen, sharing my screen with my presentation. I hope, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, you can see my slides in full screen. Okay, can everyone see that okay?
Yes.
Great, thank you. All right, so let me begin. As introduced already, I'm Dr. Alistair Wallace at the Malaysia campus of Harriet University, and I teach on the Actuarial Science program. And today I want to tell you a bit about the Actuarial Science program, and maybe if there's time, a little bit about other programs. As noted, I'm going to be talking for about 25 to 30 minutes. I have one of my former students, Kwok Wai Ming, who will talk a little bit after that. And at the end, there'll be a question and answer. So if you have any questions along the way, you can post the questions in the chat. But I won't be checking the chat while I speak. Let me begin. So say this is me, and you can contact me if you have any further questions that I don't manage to answer, a.wallace@hw.ac.uk. I also have my colleague, Ms. Jennifer Chan, from the marketing department at Harriet Watt. So she's probably the best person to initially get in contact with if you have questions about applying to Harriet Watt University. So as you probably are aware, let me just let you know, we actually have 5 campuses of Harriet Watt University. So you can see on my official Harriet Watt sticker, UK flag, t-shirt, UK flag. So our home campus is in Edinburgh, and that's where it started. We have 2 other small campuses in Scotland. We have a campus in Dubai that was opened 15 years ago. And then we've had degrees in Putrajaya for the past 7 years. And I actually came out here, 8 years, but I came out here when we started undergraduate program 7 years ago. So now I can tell people, Sai Ana Malaysia. This is me, and this is the university. At the moment, actuarial science is offered in Putrajaya. It's also offered in Edinburgh. And in fact, in Edinburgh, it was the first university in the UK to offer actuarial science degrees in the 1972 or 73. And our program is the same. So you can easily transfer between campuses, and you can transfer for 1 semester or for 2 semesters or for 2 years. So you could do 1 year in Malaysia and 2 years in UK. So the degree is 3 years long, but that's assuming you've come from, say, UEC or STPM or A levels. If you're coming from SPM, we have a 1 year foundation program as well. Now, and Dubai recently started offering a 2+2 program. Students from Dubai can come to Putrajaya and Edinburgh, but not vice versa, just to be clear. So let me begin by getting you to think about what is an actuary. So on the left of the slides, you can see a bunch of different potential careers. And on the right, some kind of key word describing that career. Now, if you think of a manager, they're very concerned about strategy. If you think of an accountant, they might be very concerned with the balance sheet and so on. So an actuary, what kind of thing are they most concerned with? Well, one might argue that the thing that is most important to them is risk. So actuaries are experts in risk management. So what do I mean by that? Roughly speaking, here's a kind of rough definition of an actuary. So they're a trained professional who evaluates financial risks and then designs ways to reduce the impact of the uncertainty of future events. So let me take that apart a little bit. So when I say trained professional, what I mean is there's actually a professional body that regulates, there are multiple professional bodies that regulate actuaries. Being a member of a professional body means, in addition to having certain qualifications, which is the trained bit, you also have to show a level of professionalism. So there are certain courses and tests on professionalism. And being a member of a professional body means you have a duty in the public interest, as well as the company you're working for. And in fact, by law in Malaysia and in many other countries, certain roles in companies must be undertaken by fully qualified actuaries, what we call fellows. So every insurance company in Malaysia has either an appointed actuary or a chief actuary or something like that, which is basically someone by law has to be a fully qualified actuary and has to sign off certain forms and things, policies and things in the company. So an actuary evaluates financial risks. So we look at things that cause risk in some sense, and there's a kind of financial cost with that risk. And this risk is something that's uncertain. So we have uncertain future events. We don't know if we're going to have a car accident. We don't know what the share price of a share is going to be in the future. But based on this uncertainty, we can try and prepare for it. So that's what actuaries do. It's about how do we prepare for future financial uncertainty. So on the one hand, an actuary needs to use a whole lot of maths and statistics. So they use probability theory to calculate the likelihood of an event and then the cost associated with that event. So in other words, mathematically calculate risk. In addition to that, an actuary needs to understand how businesses respond to economic changes. So there are things like the time value of money, which I'll come to later, which an actuary needs to be very aware of. There's a little bit about behavior of people, and an important thing is the impact of government regulations. So quite a number of actuaries work for government bodies such as Bank Negara, so the central bank in Malaysia. So let me just briefly outline some potential things that an actuary might do. So in insurance companies, one thing would be the pricing of insurance products. So how much premium to charge for, let's say, medical insurance or life insurance and so on. So you need to work out what is the potential amount of money that will be paid out in the future what is the probability of having to pay that amount of money out? And then based on that, that's how you charge your insurance in terms of probability and the kind of expected amount to pay out. So to give an example, in car insurance, you work out what's the expected amount of money that a given customer is going to claim on their costs. So, obviously the expected amount is like the average. So some customers make no claims, some customers make many claims. Then you can average, you work out how much they're expected to claim, and then based on that, you can work out how much should you charge for their premium. And because of the de-tarification that took place in Malaysia in 2017, different customers can be charged different amounts. So previously there's the no claims discount schemes, which mean basically people who don't make claims pay cheaper insurance, but there are other ways that companies can charge different customers different amounts for their insurance. So that's in terms of pricing the insurance. There's also what's called reserving. And basically this is working out how much money an insurance company needs to keep in the bank in order to pay all the claims. So if someone has an accident, they contact the insurance company can pay them after their accident. So that's what's called reserving. And it involves some maths and statistics. So you kind of think of what's the minimum amount of money that needs to be kept in the bank? What's the maximum amount that needs to be kept in the bank? Given that you don't know how many people will have accidents, you don't know how much people will claim on medical insurance. So you kind of have to think in terms of statistics and kind of confidence intervals, which you may have seen before. Reinsurance is essentially insurance for insurance companies. So it's about spreading risk. So generally, reinsurance companies are very big companies that are across many countries. And what happens if, let's say, there's flooding in Malaysia, then lots of people will claim on their home insurance. But that will happen at a different time from, let's say, forest fires in Australia. So the reinsurance company has spread its risk. So some parts of the year, it might be paying out lots of home insurance for flooding victims in Malaysia. Other times it's paying people who've been affected, also maybe home insurance, but affected by forest fires in another country. So it's all about balancing risk, spreading risk. Actuaries also work in pensions. This is a bigger area in some countries than others, but in Malaysia, you've got things like EPF, where you've got to work out how much money needs to be in the bank in order to pay people. You've got to think about like what percentage should be added by the employer and by the employee themselves in terms of saving, and how does that all contribute. There's some that work in business insurance and asset and liability management. So there's some people with an actuarial background who work in things like investment in terms of pricing financial products. Some work in merger and acquisition. And finally, I mentioned some work in regulations, things like Bank Negara or government actuary department. So really, and this is just a handful of areas, but really actuaries work anywhere where there's a need to manage risk. So just to give a couple of minutes explaining a little bit more about this. So one thing that actuaries need to consider is the time value of money. So the point is that 10,000 ringgits today is not the same as 10,000 ringgits in 10 years' time. So you need to consider a variety of things like inflation, interest rates, and so on that you may or may not have come across. So if you're paying, let's say, life insurance for someone in 30 years' time, and if you're going to pay, let's say, 10,000 ringgits to them, to their spouse, let's say, if they die in 30 years' time, then the value of that 10,000 ringgits is different today than in 30 years' time. It's going to be worth less. So it might only be worth, let's say, 6,000 ringgits today if you take into account inflation or interest rates. So you would effectively charge them 6,000 ringgits today to receive 10,000 ringgits in 30 years' time. And of course, this is just an estimate to work out the price. because economic changes will affect these actuarial valuations. So major economic events like the pandemic right now are affecting such things. Another thing that actuaries need to think about is life expectancy. So the value of things like life insurance and pension policies depend on life expectancy. So I mentioned about someone being paid a lump sum in 30 years' time. Well, that's only if they die, let's say, in 30 years' time. Well, they might die in 31 years' time, or they might die in 32 years' time. So you need to work out what's the probability of each of these events. What's the probability they live another 30 years? What's the probability they live another 31 years, and so on, in order to work out how much should be paid today for the insurance. Similarly, for pensions, you don't know how long someone's going to receive their pension. Some people might receive their pension for 5 years. Some people might receive it for 30 or 40 years. My grandfather lived to the age of 100, and he received his pension for about 40 years. Because he retired at age 60, received his pension for 40 years. So obviously that's an outlier, but the cost to the pension fund is very different from some of the people he worked with who died within 1 or 2 years of retiring, and other people who didn't even reach retirement age. And this thing is obviously affected by COVID-19, how to model this kind of thing. So actually something I teach is about survival models. How do you model life expectancy? How do you model the probability of death in the future? And actuaries at the moment are trying to work out how to adjust this, given that there have been a number of more people died during this period than usual. So I mentioned that there are professional bodies. In fact, there are many. There's one for Malaysia, which is the kind of national one of Malaysia, which is the Actuarial Society in Malaysia. For most professional bodies, there are essentially 3 levels. So there's the kind of ordinary or student member. Then there's an associate, which is like partially qualified. So someone maybe call themselves an actuary if they're an associate. And then fellow is like the highest level. And that would mean that you've basically passed all the exams and you're kind of a specialist actuary. Now, if you join the Actuarial Society in Malaysia, to be at an associate level, you have to first be an associate of one of the other bodies. And similarly, if you want to be a fellow, you have to first be a fellow of one of the other bodies because it doesn't administer its own exams. And the 2 largest bodies worldwide are the Institute and Faculty of Actuaries based in the UK and the Society of Actuaries based in the US. So these 2 here. And they have slightly different systems for universities. So the Society of Actuaries is does not give exemptions for universities, but it recognizes certain universities offer degrees that cover a good amount of actuarial content. So for example, Harriet in Malaysia has the highest level among Malaysian universities. So it's recognized as a university or college with an actuarial program advanced curriculum. So that's the kind of highest level that we have of universities in Malaysia, but you don't get any exemptions. So you'd have to sit the exams with the body themselves. The IFOA, on the other hand, accredits certain degrees, like the one at Harriet. And what this means, if you do well enough in your exams, then you can be exempted from having to do the professional exams. So, so this body, IFOA, sets these professional exams. They're also used in Australia as well as the UK. And there are essentially 4 stages, and where you take a total of 13 exams. The first 10 are core, the next 3 are specialists. So maybe to do with insurance or to do with finance or investment and so on. And our degree program offers exemptions for the first 6 of the core principles exams. So just to give an idea of the program structure, so essentially in first year is mostly courses to do with maths and statistics, but you do a course about this time value of money each semester, actual and financial maths A and B. You do an introduction to accounting, and you have a course in R and Python programming in the first semester. Instead of the introduction to accounting, there's the option of doing a course in database management systems. But the accounting course gives an exemption for the IFOA. So probably most actuarial science students will take that. In year 2, we have students will take more courses to do maths and stats, like I teach stochastic processes and survival models. But you also have 2 courses in life insurance pricing, like what I've been talking about, and 2 courses on how to price things that are bought and sold in Bursa Malaysia, things called options and futures. And portfolio theory talks about how do you optimize a portfolio. And then in the final year, you can take more courses to do finance, insurance, and statistics, and things like that. So we have an active student club, the Society of Actuarial Science. In the past, they had physical events, so don't worry with all the masks off and people close together. This was from pre-COVID, and we obviously have multiple visits to companies, but at the moment we have virtual presentations that are still taking place. They organized a forum with several speakers just back in February, and there have been quite a number of presentations from employers this past year, even during the pandemic. In terms of entry requirements, we accept from a variety of different backgrounds, but the key thing is to have a strong maths. So for example, STPM or A-level, we require A and 2 Bs with an A in maths. And from our own foundation program, we require an A in the maths course. So I've spoken for about 20 minutes, so let me speak briefly about data science. So we have a degree called Statistical Data Science that we currently offer, which is quite similar to the Actuarial Science program. The first year is in fact the same. So let me just say something a little bit about that. So essentially, data science, we have lots of data nowadays. You probably know or are aware that companies like Facebook or Amazon and so on, they collect huge amounts of data. And the question is, we have lots of data, what do we do with it? What can we do? And with the advent of computers, we can process it more than in the past. So really data science is kind of the combination of statistics and computer science. So it's like statistics, but you use a computer in a much bigger way. And broadly speaking, I would divide it as follows. So you can think of data analysis as where you can model data to understand it, you come to conclusions about the data, and then you kind of make future predictions. So you come up with, let's say, the laws of physics and so on, and you have some kind of idea, you understand what the data is telling you. And this comes down to kind of traditional statistics, that says a lot about this. Data mining or machine learning, on the other hand, is really where you use a computer to try and to learn something from the data, but without necessarily understanding what's going on. So to give a very brief example, in the past, let's say 12 years ago, I used to buy a lot of things from Amazon. And there was one day I walked into a physical bookshop, bought a book, got home, and then checked my email. And in my email was an email from Amazon saying, you might be interested in buying this book. And I'd literally bought the book in the shop a few minutes earlier. And but Amazon knew my purchase history so well, they were able to recommend a book I'd already bought that day. And that just gives you an idea of the power. That was a long time ago, but there's so many things that companies can do with data. So there are many different applications of data science, and it's the kind of backbone of AI and so on. And it's also being used in insurance. But I should be clear that there's still a role for actuaries, and I don't see in the near future actuaries being replaced by computers to that big an extent, because I think there's a lot of what an actuary does, a human needs to do. So there are many industries. I've talked about e-commerce and kind of software product suggestions. but there are a variety of other areas where data science plays a role. We have, for example, an agreement, a letter of intent with PPG Coatings, who are a paint manufacturer who use data science for various reasons in their work. And so they co-brand one of our scholarships. I'll come to it later, because they're keen to employ data scientists. So our degree is similar in structure to actuarial science, but less of the insurance and more stats, data science. First graduates graduate in July, and the entry requirements and fees are the same as actuarial science. So year one is the same, but then year two, you do more maths and stats and less insurance. And in the final year, you do a final year project, a statistical dissertation, and you have some options to do some of these finance or insurance courses, but you don't have to do very many of them. You can do more maths and stats. So I mentioned about scholarships. So every year we offer 3 scholarships of 100% and 6 of 50% for students of statistical data science at Harriet. Well, I say every year, the past 2 years, again this year, but probably this will be the last year. So probably not next year. And these are co-branded with 3 companies, Experian, FusionX, and PPG Coatings, all of whom will be involved in the interview process. They also help supervise final year projects and help with getting internships and get involved with student events. We're currently trying to seek MQA approval to launch 2 further degrees in my department in Malaysia for computing science and kind of data sciences, which will be a kind of mixture of maths, stats, and computer science. But we don't yet have approval. So I don't know if either of these will be able to launch in September. So I think that's enough from me. And I finished at 2:30 exactly, which is my intention. So I've kept to time. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Alistair. Yeah, so now we actually can open up this session for Q&A. Do you students have any questions?
Selena, so
Yeah.
you means after the Q&A session, then will be continued by the alumni, right?
Or maybe we can also start with alumni first, then the Q&A.
Yeah, so maybe I introduce the alumni. So the alumni will take about 15 minutes for the sharing sessions.
Yeah, sure, can. So we have we have Kok Wai Ming, our alumni today. I will be doing sharing on actuarial science. I pass the floor to you, Wai Ming.
Hi everyone. Hope you're having a good afternoon. My name's Wai Ming. I studied at Harriet Actuarial Science in 2016 to 2019. And Alistair taught me for a few years. And so what I'm currently doing now is I'm doing a PhD in statistics in the same uni in Harriet, Malaysia, and under a local government grant. And my plan after this is sort of kind of to delve deeper into academia, or maybe start teaching, or but if some industry opportunity comes up, I wouldn't mind as well, obviously. I'm here today to just talk about my experience studying with Harriet University Malaysia. How hopefully when things get better, the campus experience will be a bit more pertinent, and also about what I enjoyed most, pursuing actuarial science, and also just a little bit of encouragement, advice towards the end. I don't know if that's something you need. So yeah, so I'll start off with my with the campus experience overall. For me, I liked the utilities in the campus. There were a lot of computer. Well, during my time, there were 4 computer labs, and those are the ones you typically would use during classes. So yeah, because you use things like R and Python programming and stuff. So that's where you would go to attend classes, and you know, your lecturer would talk to you personally or teach you personally about how to use the programs and stuff. So you know, you wouldn't be required to have your own laptop. Of course you would have something to do your assignments and stuff, but for learning purposes, it's in uni. And yeah, other than that, there's also a lot of study rooms. With there's one that's designated to be opened 24/7. It's called the 365 room, and I spend quite a lot of my time there. Also, there's also a room called Wished, where everyone agrees to study in silence. And yeah, there's just a lot of places to study, to sit down and do your stuff. Of course, there's a library. What else? Yeah, that and there's a really nice lake. If you're feeling stressed and you need to like, you know, breathe in some air or whatever, there's a very nice lake for you to walk around and just chill. So yeah, I found that pretty nice. Other than that, personally, I quite like the lecturers. Liked how the lectures were conducted. Yeah, the lectures were good in the sense that they're able to explain pretty technical things in simpler terms, and also well, during my time, the classes weren't too big. I'm not sure how big they are now, but we still didn't really lose the personal touch with lectures, so that was good for me. You could like pop in, like, you know, whenever the lecture is free, you could pop in the office and, you know, just if you have any questions about your assignments or something, you can make an appointment, or yeah, it's easy to reach them, or you can just send an email and stuff. And yeah, so last but not least, there's also like extracurricular stuff. The clubs, I think, are pretty diverse. I wasn't in a lot of clubs myself, but there are clubs like, I think, Ariston, that are pretty big. That if you wish to be a part of. And I personally joined an a cappella group, which I don't think really went anywhere, but it was fun nonetheless. Yeah, so you have things like these to, you know, if you want a distraction once in a while, or just to do something you like, there are things like this in place. And so with that, I'll dive into the things I liked while doing the course. Considering I'm doing a PhD, you would think that I'm more inclined to the theoretical side of things. So yeah, personally, I liked how theoretical the actual science course was. It was a lot of statistics. It was a lot of abstract concepts. Very mathsy. Very, yeah. Although I think if you do like that, maybe you would be a little bit better suited for statistical data science if you don't like the insurance application that much. So given the choice, I might have gone for statistical data science, but but because this program didn't exist back in my day, so yeah, but it's totally up to personal choice. Obviously, if you think actual science is where you go for it. And yeah, so even though the theoretical things were really nice, the applications were taught really well as well. I went in with pretty much nothing about, like, knowing nothing about insurance. I didn't really even know how my own insurance worked, and because my parents were paying for them. And I was able to catch up a little bit on how things work, and you know, why certain things need to be calculated, why certain things need to be estimated, you know, why we're learning these stuff and how we're going to use it. And obviously there's so many more applications you will find in the real world when you get an actual job. But I think Harriet Watt's actuarial science course prepares you well for understanding and being able to extend your understanding to how the real world works. Yeah. And another part I liked was the coding exercises and the assignments. For me, in the beginning, it was a little bit rocky because when I took the course, I think I didn't have I didn't have a background in programming, so I kind of started from scratch. But now I think Alistair mentioned just now that you have a programming course in year 1 with R and Python. So yeah, I think that would really boost the learning of the programs. But yeah, in 2016 there wasn't a course like that, if I remember correctly. But yeah, it was a bit rocky at first, but I vividly remember studying for this test on R. It was like a 15-mark test, and all I remember was like me having to crack the code and like understand what the codes that were given to us meant, and really because I wanted to score well, so I needed to study and like to figure out how it worked. But my point is that there were checkpoints like this in place for you to know whether you're doing well, and for you to kind of pick up things that you might not be that familiar with. And yeah, that is the main part of the course that I enjoyed. But there's also one side part that came in during year 2, year 3-ish. I started okay, I didn't start it, but so I think that I'm not sure which part of the unit was, but someone in the library or someone in the teaching department started a tutoring program with the Society of Actuarial Science, and I was one of the committee back then, and I sort of led a peer-assisted learning system. So what we did was that we had a few tutors, and we would tutor, say, we would have weekly meetings for juniors to meet with us if they had any issues, if they wanted to talk about any studies, if they didn't understand anything, they needed help understanding. Yeah, so we would have weekly meetings, say in the library or something, for us to help them through whatever they don't understand. And yeah, I think it's still running now. It's a little bigger than it was. And yeah, I enjoyed that part very much because personally I like to teach, so it was a very nice experience for me. But I think it comes in very useful as well for juniors who might not be able to you know, if you're a little bit too intimidated to ask questions in class, or you know, it gives you that personal, relatable touch, and makes you feel, and often you'll find that your seniors went through the same thing, so you often won't feel so lonely after, you know, talking about what you might not understand and stuff. So yeah, that's most of what I enjoyed in actuarial science. Now I'll just move on to a little bit of advice or encouragement to all of you. Yeah. Before going into actuarial science, I took A-levels. I did maths, further maths, econs, and physics. It's a weird combination, but it's all mathsy stuff. So yeah, and so I would say that further maths helps a lot. It helped a lot for me taking for the maths, but it's absolutely not required, I think. Yeah, as long as you have a good understanding with maths, good foundation in maths, I think it's good. I think you'll do well in actual science. But yeah, I just thought I'd mention if anyone is considering what subjects to take for A levels or something. Otherwise, you will still have, if you're just going directly into it, you have a foundation in Harriet anyway. So yeah, and yeah, as you can see from the requirements that Alistair was showing just now, the mathematics requirements is they require strong mathematics, and yeah, if you're planning to go into actual science, yeah, you want to build that up as soon as possible. And yeah, just some final words. I would say if you're trying to figure out what you want to do, take your time. Don't force yourself into anything you might not want to do. Something like to take an actual science course, it's a huge commitment. It's 3 years, and you don't want to get to the final year and suddenly feel like I'm not meant for this or something. So really consider it before you dive into it. I personally liked it. I can't say that for everyone, obviously, but I think the quality was good. Yeah. Thanks for listening to me sharing about my experience. You can feel free to contact me through email or something. I'll put my email in the chat, and if you have any questions to ask me personally, or if you want to ask later during the Q&A session, feel free to. Yeah, so thank you.
Thank you, Wai Ming.
No problem.
So now we open up the session for Q&A. So dear student, if you have any questions, you can feel free to unmute yourself to ask, or if let's say you are too shy to ask, you can just leave down your question in the chat box, and we will try our best to attend every of your questions in the chat box. Yeah. So please feel free to throw us any questions. So Wai Ming already left down his email address in the chat box. So if you have any questions relating to the experience in Harriet or even experience as an actuarial science student, you can always email him. So
I see one question that it's a direct question to me, but perhaps I can answer to ask to everyone. So it says, what should I study before majoring in actuarial science or data science? So I would say the key for either of those is maths, as Wai Ming has mentioned. For both of those, knowing some programming is also useful. So honestly, in terms of choosing what you should take, if you're taking, say, A levels, then you should definitely take A level maths and potentially computing if you can, or further maths if you can, but definitely maths. Our own foundation program, of course, we would like to encourage you to consider that. And with the foundation program at Harriet Watt, you can take both maths and computing in the foundation, and that will give you a strong foundation for the degree, either degree. If you're choosing between different types of qualifications, I would say that, say, STPM, A-level, UEC cover a bit more maths in their program, their maths content, compared to, let's say, the Australian pre-university and Canadian pre-university, just because of the difference in education system in Australia and Canada, where they have 4-year degrees instead of 3-year degrees. So sometimes people ask me which type of qualification system to go for. So you want to cover as much maths as possible. That's just some advice. Because I know several of you are coming from SPM or GCSE or something like that. But if you want to try and teach yourself some programming, that could help, but we teach everything in the degree, so you don't need to know any programming. And actually, Wai-Ming was very good at programming. He's very modest, but he was very good at programming. Another question here, also direct to me, is actuary or data scientist a popular job in Malaysia? So data scientists, there are quite a lot of positions available now in Malaysia. And in fact, because of there have not been that many degrees that really cover the kind of stats and stuff that we cover in our degree, there's actually a lot of the data scientists who are employed in Malaysia in the past have been employed from other countries. So there have been people from countries like India who've been coming to Malaysia to take these to do these kind of jobs, because there are not enough Malaysians who study this kind of thing at university. So I would definitely, I mean, things are changing now, but there's definitely a demand for data scientists. Actuaries, there are a lot of people studying actuarial science at university, but I think that there's still a reasonable demand. There's also the possibility of moving to, say, Singapore or Hong Kong. You definitely want to become an actuary and are unable to get a position here, or other countries in the UK or whatever. There are many other different jobs you can do, which are not in traditional areas that an actuarial science degree could prepare you for. There's a question about the fees. Jennifer can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think for local students, I think it's about 44,000 ringgits per year for 3 years. So a total of around 130,000 ringgits for the full degree. Foundation is about 20,000 or so. So it's about 150,000 for if you include foundation as well. And the person's asked if they can have the slides. So I can. Yeah, will I share my slides? Maybe if you send me an email, I can share it.
So you want me to share my slide? So the student would like to know the fee. Is it because I cannot see the question? I think the question is directly inbox to you.
Yeah, that's what I said. Yeah.
Okay. So the student would like to know Malaysia fee, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I will share my slide here. Hold on, yeah. Okay, can see my slide now?
Yes.
Okay, so for degree actuarial science, regardless of actuarial science or data science, the total fees for 3 years in Malaysia campus will be 131,760. So this is a total fee. Basically, it's including almost everything. Okay, like school fees, exam fee, facilities, resource, ebooks, and database. Okay, so we're going to divide into 3 years. For the student to pay. So you pay by semester, of course, in total is 6 semesters. So beside the fees, right, so we will charge additional 500 application fee. So this is for degree. So let's say some of you actually coming from O-level or SPM background. So you are required to study a year of foundation, okay? So for foundation, you can actually choose to study foundation in science. Let's say you would like to keep the option, you might considering engineering, then you can go for foundation in science. So the fee is 26,340. So, or you actually the more relevant to actuarial side, I would say this, foundation in business actuarial science route. Okay, this program is a 1-year program. The fee is 23,760. So also the same inclusive of school fees, exam resource, database, and ebooks. All right. So I will stop my sharing here.
Thanks, Jennifer, for your help there. Okay. There are some further questions. Some are direct to me, actually. So yeah, let me just repeat the question and then tell you the answer them. So someone has asked if I have the qualification for level B2 in CEFR, do I need to sit for the IELTS again? Actually, I don't know what CEFR is. It's obviously an English qualification. Perhaps
you know, maybe the student who asked this question would like to know what is your higher qualification.
It's asking about the English requirement.
Yeah, the student is asking the English requirement. Maybe the student actually saw the entry requirement, English requirement in our website. So because for local student, let's say they are holding like SPM, O-level, okay, those qualifications, we don't see additional English requirement unless, like, for example, UEC student, they doesn't meet the entry, then we might need them to take the English.
Yeah, so I'm not sure what CEFR is, but as Jennifer mentioned, we require a B3 in UEC English, or you have to have SPM English, or if you've studied A levels, then you don't need, we assume since you've studied A levels, you don't have a particular requirement. There's another question, which is, if I can go through Malaysian matriculation, can I continue straight to degree, or would I need to do foundation first? We do accept, in theory, from matriculation. I don't think we've actually had any students from matriculation into this program. We've had quite a few from STPM, but I don't think we've had any from matriculation. I think you would need to have quite high marks from matriculation because it's a shorter program than STPM. So, and it's quite a maths-based degree. But in theory, it would be possible to go from matriculation. But if your marks were not sufficient, you would need to enter the foundation, potentially in semester 2 entry. So those are all the direct questions to me. Any other questions that people have?
Sorry, Dr. Alistair. Yep, I have one question which is frequent asked by some students or even parents. They ask whether is the artificial intelligence will replace human as actuaries.
Yeah, so I kind of covered this a bit in my presentation. So that I'll kind of repeat again. So basically, some roles that actuaries are doing will be replaced by computer. I mean, there's increasing usage of computers for things like automatic underwriting, automatic report generation. But the bulk of what actuaries do will still be done by humans for quite a long time. So there are things like, for example, interpreting what to do with the results. There is how explaining it to people, having discussions with a client on what they're looking for, and so on. So all these things involve humans. So although computers can be used more than in the past, there's a kind of limit I see. Perhaps maybe in 50 years' time, things will be changed. But I think at the moment, there will still be a good demand for actuaries relative to the past.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Alistair. So from my side, I don't see any more questions here. So yep. So students, you have any more questions? If no more questions, then yeah, I don't see any questions. Then I will just play a video on our closing of this session.
Actually, if you don't mind, I think one question people might be interested to know is that other than the data science futures scholarship, what other scholarships would there be available, like for general scholarships for students who are looking to enter Harriet Watt maybe?
So perhaps I can answer this. So the kind of main one probably to note would be the main one to note is that we have a discount for high performing students. So if you're coming from A level or something like that, we give the entry into the degree, we give a discount if you do well. It's up to, I think, 30% discount from A level. And from our own foundation program, I think up to 35% discount on the year 1 fees. And then each year of the degree, if you have an average of at least 70% across all your subjects, and you get a discount of 35% for the following year. And we call that the High Achiever Scholarship. We also have several students who are sponsored by different companies. And I suggest probably you look at our website to find out more information about those kind of scholarships. But the one that quite a lot of our students get is the High Achiever Scholarship, especially for first year and second year. Quite a lot of students have that. There's a question to me, which is what are the qualities that an actuarial scientist needs? So they've mentioned, i.e., an interest in maths. So I would say that yes, maths is important, but it's not all abstract maths. So just to be clear, I know Wai Ming said that there's quite a lot of maths in the degree, but there's also how you apply it. There's communicating with clients. So being able to communicate your results is important, and be able to interpret them is important as well. So, and then programming is quite useful and will probably become increasingly useful in the future.
Thank you so much, Dr. Alistair. So if no questions, then let me play a video. So if you students would like to watch the video, you may stay back to watch the video. If not, then you can actually leave this session. Thank you so much, Dr. Alistair, Wai Ming, and Jennifer for making a time for this session today. So I'll just play a video.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.